Chapter 1, Plant Overview. What is a plant? Life is currently classified as three major groups of organisms: archaea, also called archaeabacteria, bacteria, also called eubacteria, and eukarya or eukaryotes, also spelled eukaryotes. The evolutionary relationships of these groups are summarized in the simplified evolutionary tree or cladogram of Figure 1.1. The archaea and bacteria are small, mostly unicellular organisms that possess circular DNA, replicate by fission, and lack membrane-bound organelles. The two groups differ from one another in the chemical structure of a certain cellular components. Eukaryotes are unicellular or multicellular organisms that possess linear DNA, replicate by mitotic and often meiotic division, and possess membrane-bound organelles such as nuclear cytoskeletal structures. Figure 1.1, Simplified Cladogram of Life, illustrating the independent and origin of chloroplast via endosymbiosis in the euglenoids, gynnoadulates, brown plants, and red algae and green plants. Eukaryotic groups containing photosynthetic chloroplast containing organisms in bold. The relative order of evolutionary events is unknown. Some of the unicellular bacteria carry on photosynthesis, a biochemical system in which light energy is used to synthesize high-energy compounds from simpler starting compounds, carbon dioxide and water. These photosynthetic bacteria have a system of internal membranes called thylakoids, within which are embedded photosynthetic pigments, compounds that convert light energy to chemical energy. Of the several groups of eukaryotes that are photosynthetic, all have specialized photosynthetic organelles called chloroplasts, which resemble photosynthetic bacteria in having pigment containing thylakoid membranes. How did chloroplasts evolve? Is it now largely accepted that the chloroplast of eukaryotes originated by the engulfment of an ancestral photosynthetic bacterium by an ancestral eukaryotic cells, such that the photosynthetic bacterium continued to live and ultimately multiply inside the eukaryotic cell. The evidence for this is the fact that chloroplasts, like bacteria today, have their own single-stranded cellular DNA, have a smaller sized 70S ribosomes, and replicate by fission. This engulfed photosynthetic bacteria provided high-energy products to the eukaryotic cell. The host of eukaryotic cell provided a more beneficial environment for the photosynthetic bacteria. The condition of two species living together in a close contact is termed symbiosis, and the process in which symbiosis results by the engulfment of one cell by another is termed endosymbiosis. Over time, these endosymbiotic photosynthetic bacteria became transformed structurally and functionally, retaining their own DNA and the ability to replicate, but losing the ability to live independently of the host cell. In fact, over 3 has been a transfer of some genes from the DNA of the chloroplast to the nuclear DNA of the eukaryotic host cell, making the two biochemically interdependent. Figure 1.1. Dramatic illustration of the origin of chloroplast of endosymbiosis of ancestral photosynthetic bacterium within ancestral eukaryotic cell. The most recent data from molecular systematic studies indicates that this so-called primary endosymbiosis of the chloroplast likely occurred one time, a shared evolutionary novelty of the red algae, green algae, and stramenophiles. This early chloroplast became modified with regard to photosynthetic pigments, thylakoid structure, and storage product into forms characteristic of the red algae, green plants, and browns. In addition, chloroplasts may have been lost in some lineages, example, the Omycota of the Stramenophiles. Some lineages of these groups may have acquired chloroplasts via secondary endosymbiosis, which occurred by the engulfment of an ancestral chloroplast containing eukaryote by another eukaryotic cell. The euglenoids and the dinoflagellates, two other lineages of photosynthetic organisms, may have acquired chloroplast by this process. Land plants. Of the major group of photosynthetic eukaryotes, the green plants, also called Chlorobionta, are united primarily by distinctive characteristic of the green plant chloroplast with respect to the photosynthetic pigments, thylakoid structure, and storage compound. Green plants include both the predominantly aquatic green algae and a group known embryophytes, usually referred to as the land plants. The land plants are united by several evolutionary novelties that were adaptations to making the transition from an aquatic environment to living on land. These include an outer cuticle, which aid in protecting tissues from desiccation, specialized gametophagia that have an outer protective layer of sterile cells, and an intercalated diploid phase in the life cycle, the early immature component of which is termed the embryo. Just as the green plants include the land plants are inclusive of the vascular plants, the latter being united by the evolution of independent saprophyte and xylem and phloem vascular conductive tissues. The vascular plants are inclusive of these seeds, which are united by the evolution of woods and seeds. Finally, seed plants include the angiosperms, united by the evolution of the owner, including the carpels and the stamens by a number of other specialized fixtures. For the remainder of this book, the term plant is treated as equivalent to the embryophytes, the land plants. The rationale for this is partly that land plants make up so-called natural monophyletic group, whereas the photosynthetic eukaryotes as a whole are an unnatural paraphyletic group. And practically, it is land plants that most people are talking about when they refer to plants, including those in the field of plant systematics. However, as noted before, the word plant can be used by some to refer to other groupings. When in doubt, a precise clarification. Why study plant? The tremendous importance of plants cannot be overstated. Without them, we and most other species of animals wouldn't be here. Photosynthesis in plants and other photosynthetic organisms change the earth in two major ways. First, the exhaustion of carbon dioxide and the release of molecular oxygen in photosynthesis directly alter the Earth's atmosphere over billions of years. What used to be an atmosphere deficient in oxygen underwent a gradual change. As a critical mass of oxygen accumulated in the atmosphere, selection for oxygen-dependent respiration occurred, which have been a necessary precursor in the evolution of many multicellular organisms, including all animals. In addition, oxygen-rich atmosphere permitted the establishment of an upper atmosphere ozone layer, which shielded life from excess UV radiation. This allowed organisms to inhabit more exposed reaches that were previously inaccessible. Figure 1.3. Simplified